Hello everyone, welcome to a quick episode of Trek Canon, Bootleg Edition. So there's a lot of attributes that we can ascribe to great Starfleet captains, some of which has been professionalism, duty, integrity, intelligence, safeguarding of their ship and crew. But one of the challenges that all Starfleet captains face is their interpretation of General Order Number 1, or most people would know it as the Prime Directive. Now, like I've said, there's been many attributes that embody a great Starfleet captain. Amongst those have been a strong moral and ethical foundation. And to help guide Starfleet captains, again, we have the Prime Directive that kind of sets aside how a captain may feel about how they interfere with the natural development of a pre-warp civilization. Now, there's been a lot of episodes that focused on the Prime Directive, how captains and crew interpret and deal with violations of the Prime Directive, right? Some episodes showing the benefit of why the Prime Directive exists and question of why the Prime Directive should exist. But whether or not the Prime Directive or General Order Number 1 is something that should be followed or something that depends on the situation, I'll leave that entirely to the viewer. But for me, I think the Prime Directive is extremely important and in most cases should be followed. But let's talk about two examples surrounding Captain Picard because there's, again, reasons why Captain Jean-Luc Picard would never be in my top three best captains in Starfleet. Now, these two examples, again, are just my opinion, but they lean heavily and show a lot about the type of character when it comes to moral and ethics that a person like Captain Jean-Luc Picard has. And those two episodes would be Star Trek The Next Generation, Suddenly Human, and The Perfect Mate. Now, before we really get into it, just understand that there's going to be spoilers in this video concerning those two episodes and probably a few other things. So if you have an issue with spoilers, look, you know how I roll. So just be warned. So basically in the episode Suddenly Human, right, from TNG, the Enterprise crew basically rescues this teenager that's human, in which the problem with that is that this human was amongst the survivors of the enemy that that had attacked the Federation. Okay, now come to find out that in the past, when this teenager was a toddler little kid, his family was eliminated by this particular race, and they took him in as part of their family, as part of that particular race's culture. Now, understand that this human teenager, has family that thought he was dead on Earth, one of which is an admiral. So, of course, the human family is happy to know that their ancestor has survived, man, and request Captain Picard bring him back. But see, here's the thing. The teenager, since the only family he has known or been indoctrinated with, been raised by, has been his enemy family, he don't feel like he knows anybody on Earth. And he's basically like, look, I'm not going to go back. Even the family of this teenager comes on board the enemy race, and they basically like, listen, this going to start an issue. Jonah is our kid. Look, this is our culture. You violating that right now, right? Now, the thing is that Captain Picard is faced with a decision. Should I let this kid stay with the people who eliminated his family and basically kidnapped them into their culture? Or should I say, hey, I'm going to do what's best for this kid because obviously he don't know what's going on, the situation. He's been harmed mentally. And take this kid back to develop a relationship with his actual culture and family, right? Now, of course, Captain Picard tries to convince the kid, hey, let's try to, okay, right, people miss you and all this stuff. But ultimately, Captain Picard makes the decision to send this kid back with the people who killed his family and basically replace their family member with him. Like cutting them off from his human civilization, his human culture, his human family, everything that had to do with who he is. And in the episode, The Perfect Mate, long story short, right? The Enterprise is tasked to transport this cargo between one world and this other world who happen to be warring with each other. Now, the interesting thing about this episode is you got to understand that the Enterprise, under the captainage of Jean-Luc Picard, is the flagship of the Federation. This is a very important position and role. All right. So these planets must be important to the Federation, or they must be involved in the Federation, or part of the Federation, or they seeking to do something with these planets as far as the Federation goes. All right. So understandable. Picard is on his way to do that. Because of an accident, the shipping container with the cargo basically is damaged. It opens up and it's revealed that this cargo is a sentient humanoid female, all right? An empath, basically. And what the cargo is basically doing is the head of one world is going to give this person as a gift to the leader of another world, right? Now, during conversations with the lady and everything like that, Picard and the lady develops a relationship, a bond. She bonds to him empathically. All right. Now he knows that what she's going to this planet for, why she's being transported, and everything. And don't even make it better when Picard finally meets the individual that is supposed to her. He's basically like, listen, I don't care nothing about her. She's just gonna be property. My interest is other things. You know, they just giving her to me, you know, as a sign, whatever, man. She gonna, whatever. Basically saying that this sentient individual is basically not gonna have any rights. They're gonna be a slave. All right. So basically, Captain Picard is transporting a person to be put into slavery. Now, what does Picard do? Does he say, hey, listen, I'm gonna override this situation, General Order Number 1, which basically the Prime Directive didn't apply. Because they know all about the Federation. They was on the Federation ship doing the Federation diplomacy. The Federation was helping out with the war between the worlds, so the General Order didn't apply. What applied was Picard's ethics and morals in that situation. And for him to decide to just go ahead and be like, all right, you know what? We just gonna give her away. We're not going to negotiate another type of deal because these are worlds that's trying to become part of the Federation, or the Federation is trying to do business with. Maybe there was some other item that this guy did find important or valuable to where Picard didn't have to give him a sentient individual. He could have gave him something else, another type of item to satiate the relationship between these two worlds. But Picard didn't do that. Now, first of all, let me say, it wouldn't be a mistake for people who are just joining Star Trek or the universe of Star Trek to believe that this universe is filled, you know, it's all utopia, positivity, optimism, you know, all of this, you know, paradise, all right? But if you actually dive into the lore or even storytelling, great storytelling, to hold a mirror or to contrast what something good is, you have to put it against something that is against what that is, right? And so there's a lot of cultures and stuff in Star Trek that that we can use as examples of that. A lot of cultures in Star Trek still use transporting and slaves and stuff like that, and selling of slaves, capturing of slaves in the Star Trek universe. One of the famous episodes was Mud's Women. Now, I don't really agree with Mud's Women because that was the decision and transaction between the miners and the ladies that Mud was transporting. All right. Mud wasn't, you know, basically enslaving these women. He was basically the mediator between them. All right. So I don't really consider that. But think of people like the Orions or the Ferengi. All right. And when I say the Orions, I'm not talking about the Orion slave girls because that's the tactic employed for them to take over, stuff like that. But in Enterprise, when we went to the Orion slave world, right, they had people in cages that wasn't Orion women. And what did they do? They were trading in slavery, right? Even in Commander Maddox, in Measure of a Man, was basically trying to reproduce data to make a race of individuals that Guinan later referred to as would be a slave race. All right. So there's a lot of things that Trek canon addresses in canon, and they give captains a lot of opportunity and leeway to express both morally and ethically how they would deal with those situations. And to me, Captain Picard fell just a bit short when given those two instances. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments or any examples of other captains who kind of made questionable decisions when it came to their interpretation of the Prime Directive or General Order Number 1. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And as always, peace, recycle, and say the whales. You guys be cool.